Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 1st Planning Commission meeting. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. Provenzano.
Here.
Mr. Sciutto.
Here.
Mr. Spatafora.
Here.
Mr. Oliver.
Here.
Mr. Bentley here. All present and accounted for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bentley. Approval of previous meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question.
Okay.
This would be for our legal counsel this evening. I think we have a new set of minute formats here, and my only concern when looking over it was that we seem to be primarily going on motion and second of motion, and we haven't spelled them out. I assume this is something we can tweak going forward. I just wanted to make sure you're okay with the minutes as presented without some of the reasoning for the motion when it was given.
My understanding is that the form of the minutes that we're using now is to maintain consistency with the minutes that the Board of Trustees uses. So to make sure that everything is consistent within the township, that's why we've adopted this new format.
Okay, but and even if we might look at it in the future, you're certainly okay with it tonight in this format.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tuckfield.
If there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion. We approve the previous minutes from the last meeting.
Motion by Mr. Sciutto, seconded by Mr. Provenzano. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Okay, approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
discussion?
if there's no further discussion, I will move that we approve tonight's Planning Commission agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Spatafora, seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, new business. Site plan, Aspen Restaurant, permanent parcel 0833478-001, located on the north side of Hall Road, 100 yards west of Heinrich Road, Section 33, Aspen Restaurant petitioner. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go through a few slides here, and I apologize to those of you in the public. We're having some difficulties. Our projector's not working, so these folks are going to be looking at the slides in hard copy. I apologize that you're not able to see this. But so Aspen Restaurant, they are in for a site plan review, requesting approval to allow the construction of a new outside deck on the north side of the restaurant. It does say on these slides, and I think Mr. Tuckfield pointed that out the other day, a discussion about it, an open area covered patio on the south side. That has actually been kind of pushed off until a further date. Tonight, we're only looking at the outside deck on the north side of the restaurant, not the open air smoking patio on the Hall Road side. It's located in C2 General Commercial Zoning Parcel, and the complex also contains a bank and an office building. In looking at this, they're proposing, as I mentioned, this covered patio for some more eating space. We did go over all the requirements. There were some revisions of the plans a number of times to make sure there was a 5-foot concrete walkway, that the drive aisles were wide enough, and that they met the number of barrier-free parking spaces. All of those have been satisfied at this time. And if you look at this second slide here, there's kind of the larger site plan that shows all of the accessible spaces around the complex. This site is computed as a whole, so the office building, the bank, and the restaurant all in one. So they do have enough accessible spaces, and they do have the acceptable sidewalks in all areas. At this time, staff is recommending approval for the requested site plan drawings. There's a little bit closer zoomed-in view of the rendering here, showing kind of where the outdoor dining space would be, what it would look like. They do have two egress points from the outdoor space in case of emergencies, as well as connection to the indoor space. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner here by chance? Would you come to do we want him, Mr. Box, do we want him at the podium?
Correct.
Yes, at the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Careful of the cord up there.
Oh, yeah, once you're up there.
My name's Scott Pinner, chef and owner of Aspen Restaurant. And we are petitioning for an outside dining area for the
I just
restaurant.
need an address, please, even if it's Aspen.
20333 Hall Road, Macomb, Michigan, 48044.
Thank you. Go ahead. Did you have anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, actually, I want to thank that you guys, for everybody coming here for this petition. We proposed outside dining area. Brief history of Aspen, for those of you who might not know, we are the heart of Macomb County. We're a landmark business for Macomb Township. We recently celebrated 18 years in business. We've always been big supporters of our community through schools, charities, fundraisers. Being on the largest traveled road in Macomb Township, we recognize our role in representing ourselves, our community, in a positive way, and we take pride in doing so. The reason for the outside dining area, currently we see our business still hurting due to the pandemic and the construction on the M59 freeway or roadway. We are looking to add onto the north side of the building an outside dining area for our guests. As we've seen from the CDC, that outside dining is the safest way to dine out due to the coronavirus. And this dining area will help our business now and the years to come. In conclusion, we're looking for help answer any questions or concerns the board or any of the community might have.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll turn it over to commissioners.
I have one question to the petitioner.
Well,
Will this be a
Mr.
year?
Spatafora was
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. To the
First off, good evening, Mr. Penner. Yeah, outstanding restaurant. I've patronized that several times over the years.
Thank you.
Is with respect to the outdoor dining area, do you envision during the colder portions of the year, late fall, winter, early spring, that in that outdoor dining area, you're looking to have like a bubble like other establishments might have, so you have potentially year-round dining outdoors, or will that portion be closed, during the cold seasons?
I think ultimately, with the state of Michigan and the weather you've seen, 85-degree weather and you see 55-degree weather. So we'll try to utilize it as we can, but we know our heart and soul of the building is inside. The dining would be pretty much, I can picture it a Memorial Day to Labor Day type, atmosphere. And I think that's really kind of what we're doing, because our summers typically are slower because of that. People are looking to sit outside, and I think this will help us immensely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spatafora. Mr. Shuda?
That was my question.
Well, there you go.
Sorry.
Is
Being
there
them
anyone
two,
else?
being them two questions got answered, I got a couple quick questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Allen.
One, are your hours gonna change at all
Uh,
there? They're gonna coincide with the inside hours?
Yeah, that's the plan, just to coincide strictly with what we do inside, for staffing and, for what our guests, are wanting.
And, any audio out there?
Our plan basically is to have, background dinner type music, nothing that's, too excessively loud,
No 6-foot high speakers?
No. And I've actually have some experience for a restaurant I worked in Florida, which was on the Intercoastal Waterway. We had communities on the other side I worked with an audio guy to learn how to actually face the speakers the correct way so that the sound stays in and actually ends up masking parking lot sounds or Hall Road sounds, from around the corner, to actually so the guests have the best experience possible and not the noise outside.
Good. One last question. When you serve alcohol out there, and I'm assuming you will, is there anything you need from the liquor commission?
We're,
Does that just follow that out there?
it actually, as long as we have it structured inside, contained, they can't take it outside of, the structure itself, which, with the 2 points of egress, one of them being an emergency exit and the other one actually being at the main entrance where we plan on putting a host stand. So that way there'll be a point person there at all times. And we've never really had that, knock on wood, I guess, but, problems with a lot of, alcohol problems. So we've been blessed with that. So,
So you'll serve out there?
yes.
Good, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bent?
My questions are related to the egress issues that I think it was the engineering department that or building department I identified. Also on your plan versus your elevation, it seems like the gates are in different locations on the north side. Can you clarify how many gates you're going to need for egress requirements, both for the restaurant or kitchen area exiting as well as this eating area?
Well, we have one that's actually going to come out from the kitchen to be able to serve, any alcohol, beverages, food. And then we have one that actually is going to be almost directly across from that exit to go out as an emergency exit where the 5-foot sidewalk will be. And then there will be an exit entrance area, which will be near the main entrance of the building. I do know at one point we had considered one on the west side, but there was a concern of that coming out towards possible traffic coming by, and we felt it was a safety concern at that point to not do that.
Right now, your elevation shows it on the west end of the north elevation. And the plan shows the door opposite your kitchen door exiting. And I didn't know whether you were going to have both that and as well the one on the east end in regards to the egress requirements that were mentioned per code.
The one on the west side of the deck,
West end
west end of the deck,
is called out on the elevation.
I believe we had that on at one point, but I think the latest one that we had submitted was without it because of that safety reason. But we do have the one which is actually facing east towards the main entrance of that addition and also on the north side of that.
Okay. I think that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Bentley. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I had one question for the petitioner, just to round out things here. Do you expect the amount of patrons within your restaurant to increase within this, or are you thinking it's going to be proportioned further outside depending on choices?
I think that it'll actually, because typically on a standard day we see, the main dining room and the bar area. I think as our guests will come out, they'll see that as an advantage to sit outside. I don't think it'll be proportionately larger. I just think that they'll have another option as to sit inside, or outside. And for the most part, they'll have that option either way. So.
Okay. And I think there was at least one other member who had noticed that when I did my site review, there was a couple of signs in the buildings that reference, and I'm going to paraphrase here, even if the parking lot is full. Thank you. I think it said, wait times might be minimal if the parking lot is full due to our banquet rooms being occupied for parties. So obviously, the business has been successful in that regard. I'm obviously just a concern is that the parking lot is sufficient for the extra use that you may end up getting. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I know I'm trying to remember in the past when we added on that room on the front of the building, we had did a kind of a test, and granted this was years ago, as to what our parking lot looked like at certain times of the day. We've never run into a issue of having people coming in saying I got no place to park. I really don't foresee that being a problem by any means. But it's, obviously our goal is to sit there and make sure that, everybody has a spot to, to park. The nice thing is about our facility is the office building behind us and the bank are done by 5. And that's when we pick up
When you get your
business,
most of your business.
and that's when you'll see that influx. And they're closed on the weekends. And if I've got people sitting out there having Sunday brunch, enjoying the weather, the other buildings are completely unoccupied. And that's a nice flow of our parking lot.
Synergy of the site.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
One other question.
Go ahead, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other question regarding the exterior perimeter of this. Is there any thoughts of having any screens, temporary screens, whatever, for if you're out there at night? Certainly it's going to attract bugs and everything else. And your plan is, I assume, to keep that open. Any thoughts about that, or you just?
Well, we want to keep it an open air feel. I think obviously having an outside deck, that's the guests want to feel. I have traveled, to Florida. I lived in Florida for a couple years, and one thing I've noticed down there in some of the decks, like especially like January and February, where it's warm to us here, it's actually cold down there. So being 40 degrees, 50 degrees down there, they have screens that pull down. They're semi-permeable, so they let a little bit of air in and out, but enough to actually you could maintain the heat in the room if it was a little cooler day, and also will keep the weather out. So obviously to get it built and open for starters, and obviously at that point we'll probably have to get stuff custom made to actually fit. So I have a few different companies I've been looking at. So I think it'll keep the atmosphere, because obviously I'd hate to have everybody rush inside because it starts to rain when I could just pull down a screen. So.
Or June bugs or something. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Anyone else, commissioners? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further discussion, I would move that we approve the proposed addition for the site plan for Aspen Restaurant as presented and as recommended by our planning department and our department reviews.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Spatafora, seconded by Mr. Bentley. Mr. Bentley, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Provenzano. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Provenzano.
Yes.
Mr. Shudo.
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
And Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right. Next item under new business, revised site plan, Regency Commerce Center, Unit 12. Permanent parcel 0817344-012, located on the west side of Regency Center, north of 23 Mile Road, Section 17. Mr. DeMercio, petitioner. Mr. Box.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, Regency Commerce Center, this is Unit 12. This is a revised site plan. This is zoned M1 or light industrial. This is a site that already has an approved site plan with one building. As you can see in the slides that I prepared for you, Phase 1 that is already constructed. They are seeking the revision to add Phase 2, which would be 2 additional buildings, one of which is essentially a mirror image of the existing building, and the other one is a slightly larger building that would be on the southwest corner of Leone Drive and Regency Center Drive. They have provided adequate parking spaces for the 2 new buildings. They also have the appropriate outdoor storage areas. They've met all heights and ordinance requirements as far as setbacks, and at this time, all staff is recommending approval for the revised site plan.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner in the audience? Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Bill Thompson from Lehner Associates. The address is 17001 19 Mile Road, Suite 3, Clinton Township, 48036. Mr. Bach's done a fine job of presenting for me. The site, the first building was placed on this site. Construction started about a year ago. It's nearing completion. They plan on, again, duplicating that building, a mirror. Is it a mirror image?
Close.
Okay. And then just north of that, they're going to put a little bit larger building. This will complete the construction on Lot 12. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Petitioners, any questions? Anyone? Okay, do we have a motion? Oh, no, we don't have to, but we could. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Oliver.
I move on the revised site plan, Regency Center, Commerce Center, Unit 12, permanent parcel 08-17344-012.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Tuckfield. All right, Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Provenzano,
Yes.
Mr. Shudo.
Yes.
All ayes.
Motion passes. All right,
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thompson. All right, next item, rezoning request 08-07-100-014, 08-07-300-001, and 08-07-300-013. Rezoning request agricultural AG to residential one-family urban R1 located on the east side of Hayes, a quarter mile south of 25 Mile Road. Section 7, Nino Lucero, petitioner. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as you mentioned, these three parcels are currently zoned agriculture, and the applicant is seeking to get them rezoned to R1, which is residential one-family urban. The parcel numbers you read off are correct. It was pointed out that the applicant listed one of their parcel numbers wrong, but we caught that weeks ago. We advertised correctly. There's no concern, I promise. They are largely vacant land at this time. I believe there is still a farmhouse on one of the pieces. All three parcels are currently master planned to be R1, which is what they're seeking the rezoning to, for 3 units per acre. The properties to the east and to the south are also both zoned R1, and this would align with that, as well as I mentioned, it would align with what is set forth in the existing master plan. And again, at this time, they're not proposing any construction, any building. This is a rezoning. We're not here to talk about what may or may not be built there, strictly rezoning. And with that, I'll say, rezoning doesn't necessarily generate any additional traffic levels. It's further steps down the line that might increase traffic, and that was something that would likely be addressed at that time. At this time, all staff is recommending approval for this rezoning from AG to R1.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is the petitioner, and please state your name and address for me, please.
Sir, good evening. Pete Snyder, Urban Land Consultants, 8800 23 Mile Road, Shelby Township, Michigan, representing the petitioner. I really have nothing to add. My client, Mr. LaChurco, acquired the property earlier this year, and he is certainly looking to develop down the road, but at this point, we're just looking to get it rezoned to the master plan zoning so that he might proceed. So I'm certainly available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. petitioners,
I got a
petitioners, commissioners. Go ahead, Mr. Oliver.
Was this property purchased all as one unit? Because the northern edge of that was part of that farm. So
Yeah,
is that
actu-
gonna be a separate?
Actually, right now, there are 3 parcels out there existing, and the ownerships are not, the ownerships are not identical for each one.
Got it.
So technically, it was all one family, but it wasn't technically, all one unit. It's not, so there's 3 separate parcels, 3 separate purchases. We're going to bring them in, eventually, they should be developed as one project.
So you're not bringing that whole parcel in? You're just bringing everything outlined in the yellow? That'd
Yeah.
be south of the barns?
You have benefit, you're looking at something that I don't have in front of me right now.
I just wanna make sure we're rezoning what we're rezoning.
Yeah, so what we're rezoning is the,
School.
there's 3 parcels south of the school.
Yep.
Yep. And west of the abutting subdivisions, and I believe it's the consumer's pipeline, and north of the subdivision to the south. But there's 3 parcels in there.
But you've purchased up to 25, but you're not bringing that in now? Is that the way I'm,
No, the purchase ends at
School.
the school.
at the school, okay. Got it,
Okay.
thanks.
You good, Mr. Oliver?
I'm good now.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question for Mr. Box, but I'll wait until the appropriate time.
All right. Okay. At this time, I'd like a motion to open it to the public.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Oliver,
Support.
supported by Mr. Shudo. All in favor?
Aye.
If we have anyone in the public that would like to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. And Mr. Box, if we have anybody online? What,
After we go
yeah,
through the.
after the folks that are here.
Good evening. I'm Scott Baden, 54107 Eagle Drive, Macomb Township. We do back up to that farm area, and our concern, and I understand, as we explained earlier, that right now is not to talk about the concern of traffic, but it is a concern of ours. Once it's been rezoned, then you're starting to concern about it, and we're also concerned about the school. The school's already got 3 trailers sitting outside. And depending on how many homes you're able to fit in there, you know, you're going to bring in a lot of young families, obviously, and that's going to be an additional stress on the school system. That's sitting there, 24-mile is already backed up every day from Hayes, past Hayes, all the way to Romeo Plank. You can't turn left if you're at the gas station over there. You got accidents all the time at 24 and Romeo Plank. That's our biggest concern. It's a lot of safety and stuff that's going on over there. And yeah, obviously I'm a little disappointed about the reduction of wildlife that we get to see in our backyard and stuff that's there. But the traffic is really going to be a problem, once this gets rezoned and we get homes in there once development starts.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, let's check and see.
Nobody has their hand raised. If there's anyone online that would like to speak, please raise your hand with the raise hand button, or *9 if you're on a cell phone.
Okay. Then I need a motion to close the public portion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Oliver,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion from our commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I did just have two quick questions for Mr. Box, if I had
Mr.
humored.
Tuckfield?
Mr. Box, 2 questions on this, and obviously, as we talked about before, the line between a rezoning and further action is, there is a separation, but I think these are appropriate questions. The first question is with regards to load on the property. This property is master planned R1, even though it is not yet zoned R1, is that accurate?
Correct.
And R1 is 3 units per acre, correct?
Correct.
And Am I correct in understanding that when the master plan is built, that is when the load for the roads is calculated based on the projected use?
Correct.
So in other words, the load on the roads is based on the expected use for this parcel. And if this parcel was to be zoned R1, it would be zoned to the load that they calculated the use of the area for.
Correct. Utilities as well, being water, sewer, all utilities, including the roadways,
Okay.
are built with what's master planned in mind.
All right. So obviously, traffic that we all see notwithstanding, this request is to bring it to the density that the area was calculated for, both the roads now and also the roads into the future, because obviously roads will expand as residents go in. Okay. Granted, there's more discussion on this at the point that development to happen, but I just wanted to make sure that I verified that. The second question I had was with regards to the gas easement to the east side of the property. If a residential neighborhood were to be built here, there's several stub streets that are connected to the neighborhoods to the east. Would the gas easement prohibit those stub streets from going through, or do we have an understanding of how that would work?
No, they would not necessarily prohibit them from being connected through. We have a number of other places. I believe Wolverine Estates North connects into the Wolverine subdivision. And in the future, the Villas of Bellagio have a location where a road will connect across, and Wolverine Country Club Estates, the most recent one, I want to say is Phase 4, also has a location that will be connected across that same.
That same one, okay. And I know we have an issue with the one off of Luckman, I want to say, that long, thin sliver. Has a stub on the north and the south that, if I remember correctly, it'll be difficult to connect.
And that one is intended to be connected in the future.
Okay, just as long as we're on board with the fact that if something's developed, I would hope obviously the stubs would be carried through if possible. At the point of development. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Anyone else? All right, do we have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to recommend rezoning of permanent parcels 0807100014 and 0807300001 and 0807300013. I believe that's the correct number of zeros, hopefully. I'll say as per the agenda and to make sure that we're correct. This would be from AG to R1, and the reasoning would be based on consistency with the master plan, and all department heads recommending approval of this rezoning.
Okay. Do I have a second? Support. Supported by Mr. Bentley. Mr. Bentley, call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Provenzano?
Yes.
Mr. Shudo?
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora?
Yes.
All
Okay.
ayes.
Motion passes. All right, on to old business. Mr. Box, do we have any old business tonight?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, next item is public comments on non-agenda items. Does anybody want to speak on non-agenda items? All right, moving on. Then let's move to commissioners' comments. Anybody have anything they'd like to share tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question, if I could, for Mr. Box. Might have to wait for him to get back. We had no public comments.
Oh, good, thanks.
Non-agenda items. If so, please digitally raise your hand at this time. Not seeing you.
Okay.
Mr. Box, I was just curious, I drive through the Heidenreich and Hall Road intersection, or did more often before we had turnarounds shut down, every day. I've noticed recently that there's been a fair amount of land clearing on the northwest corner of that intersection. We've seen some plans in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it's been, maybe a few years. Just curious, is there perhaps a consent judgment moving forward there? Is there a request coming forward? What's happening with that parcel?
If that's the intersection I'm thinking of.
It's right behind Aspen.
Yeah, I think there is a consent agreement there that was approved previously, that they're making some minor modifications. Modifications have not formally been approved at this time, but they are allowed to clear the property.
What's the general nature of the development?
I believe they're looking for a senior facility, a self-storage, and I think a small retail strip with a fast food on one end.
Do you happen to know, by memory, and other people might remember this better than I, that the original development that came forward to us had a height element to it? I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 stories, but I remember it being fairly tall. Do you know if that's a portion of the?
I believe that's still the case for the senior facility.
And is that fronting Hall Road or
Correct.
further back?
Fronting Hall Road.
And I'm sorry, I'm asking 20 questions here, but like, do you know how many stories it is expected to be?
It's 3 or 4, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. And then probably the self-storage would be further back on the parcel with the strip center sort of in the middle?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. I had one other question, but I don't remember what it is, so I guess I will leave it be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Anyone else like to share tonight? Anyone? Okay, moving on to Macomb Township Board of Trustees Liaison and his update. Mr. Oliver.
The update. Not a lot. We spent a lot of time on the preliminary budget, and it's been okayed. Our final budget will be coming out. The other thing that was kind of interesting was earlier this year, the supervisor, or maybe it was last year even, we have a lot of small, chopped up little parcels in the community. A lot of times, big parcels get split and they can't use them, so we end up getting them. And there's quite a few in Macomb Township, so the supervisor decided to get approval from the board, put them out for sale, and we've sold 2 parcels already. But the kind of good thing is we raised $75,000 on the 2 parcels. And we'll be able to use that money for our new park, the Pittsford Park. So not only did we get the land donated to us, we won't have to use as much general money to build the park. And maybe we'll sell some more property in the meantime. So if anyone's interested in parcels, it's all listed. So, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oliver. The ZBA Liaison and your update, Mr. Tuckfield.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing new to report from the ZBA.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, can I ask Mr. Oliver, how's the sprinkler system?
We've had people that have requested somebody to come out and help them with their sprinkler system. So I feel it's successful.
Yeah, because I've had a few older, I'm old now, but a few people that
Easy.
aren't familiar with,
Easy on that.
starting their sprinkler system. I've informed them that the township will have somebody come out and work on or look at your sprinkler, and they were very pleased that the township is offering that service to the residents. So kudos to the township going forward with that program.
I think it's gonna be successful. It's not gonna be the mass amount of people, because we have a young community. Okay, so generally the younger people figure that out. It just comes very natural. Even like me, I struggle with that, and but I get through it slowly, but I do make it. But it is a good program, and I think it's gonna be very successful.
Good. All right, anyone else? All right, Planning Department items?
Yeah, we'll discuss a couple, I guess. One of those being the sign ordinance. I know a year ago, it seems like, when I first got here, that was something that you guys had wanted us to take a look at. We have been going back and forth, sitting once every few weeks with the building department. They're the ones that would be enforcing most of this sign ordinance and making some revisions, myself and Dave. And I think we have a pretty strong draft at this time. It's with Mr. Orlando and Mr. Aloya to review kind of a final version of that, so you can expect that in front of you in the near future, as well as revisions to a few other minor ordinances, including the one Mr. Tuckfield mentioned a few meetings ago about the setback situation, setback versus greenbelt So we have been working on some of those. We've also been working on quite a bit on the master plan, and I'll let Dave discuss some of that, but we're maybe not as far along as we had hoped to be at this point. Some of that has to do with us stealing Melissa away from Dave's company and putting them behind a little bit, but I'll let Dave touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, about the last 2 or 3 weeks, we really made a lot of headway. We've got all the initial chapters on recreation, the environment, all the background studies now in place. We've drafted, 6, 7 pages of development goals and policies we'd like to have the commission look at. It's a rough draft form, but we got it formatted in place. The future land use map, we've got that going to be sent out to the GIS group in my office by the end of the week, so they can start getting in a format that the commission can look at. The final chapters that we still have to write, but we have to get through these first chapters first, include any sub-area plans that you'd like to do, which we take a deeper dive into specific areas of the township. Could be the town center area, could be any place else. By law, we have to have a zoning plan chapter, which takes all the, remember, the rezoning a second ago, we talked about master planning at 3 dwelling units per acre as opposed to an R1 zoning. By law now, we have to take each master plan category and we have to align it with a zoning district or 2 or 3 zoning districts to show how they align together. Then the final chapter is the last item is the implementation chapter. We're going to set up a 5-year program on what we want to get done each year. And to proceed, and again, these are all things commission have to work on. Once we get through this first draft, we will take it to the township board based on commission. Actually, we'll send it to the township board on our recommendation to distribute. At that point, the township board will look at the plan draft and they'll decide whether they want to start distributing it. We have to send it to all the surrounding communities, the county, utilities, railroad companies, SEMCOG, and give them all 63 days in order to comment on the plan. Their comments when they come back will be advisory. We don't have to follow them, they're advisory only. At the end of the 63 days, then the Township Planning Commission will hold the formal public hearing on the plan. And also as part of that, the Township Board, in the meantime, has to make a resolution whether they want to be the adopting body or if they're going to let the Planning Commission be the adopting body. We'll work with the board on that. That's where we sit with it.
Will this be ready by 22?
By what?
By 2022?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
All right. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Box? Mr.
Nope,
Sordo?
I think that's everything.
All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Bentley.
Has there been any further development or coordination with some of the studies, one being the flood zone study, and also the greenway following our waterways that was put together by several, or includes several townships, communities and such.
Yep. Yeah, we've been in communication with the county who created the North Branch Greenway plan. We are incorporating some of that into our plan as well. There was actually recently a grant opportunity that we may be working with the county to get some of that greenway implemented in the near future, even before, it would be in our master plan. But that remains to be seen whether that'll happen. But we are definitely looking at the North Branch Greenway as well as a number of other studies, including neighboring communities, what their master plan is for, calls for as far as zoning and land use.
In the planning of, and going with that North Branch Greenway, is there any plans to try to connect either with walkways, bikeways, and that some of our parks that we have and tie them in somehow to that?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And in some places, it's going to be mandatory. Even the most, pie in the sky vision of that North Branch Greenway, there's, especially in the northeast portion of the township, there's plenty of vacant land where it might come to fruition, but they kind of hit a roadblock when they get to the golf course area right now. So until that area, whether it does or doesn't develop into something other than golf courses. For now, it would need to connect to, the roadway path network to essentially go around that area and connect back up.
Thank you, Josh, I appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Box?
Nope.
Anything else, commissioners?
I did have one brief question for Mr. Skirdo. This is obviously, well, I'm gonna ask the question, and it's a longer question. But we've talked before about, and we heard tonight, the difficulty of the chicken and egg problem with development and roads.
Yes.
It's a difficult subject because we don't control the roads, and it's difficult to keep someone from developing their land if they have a reasonable expectation of it. Have you done anything with that in your recommendations and how you wrote up the master plan? Do we have any different tools of how we can address that?
We're still constrained by how the county wants to do things. Right now, we are looking at, serious considerations. One of the last parts of the draft map we're looking at is what to do with the sections just to the north and northeast of here, because it's right now, that's master plan at 2 dwelling units per acre, as opposed to 3 dwelling units per acre. So we're trying to get through that. But we do look at what the county wants to do. We try to keep an eye on, with Jim Van Tifflin, we try to keep an eye on the expansion of the roads, what can it handle, items such as that. There's also the flood zones and the wetlands and what to do. So the northeast is the last big development area. We're trying to keep an eye on all this and what's truly developable, what's not, what other tools are out there. Is it a push towards more like cluster type housing where you have pods of housing going in, you leave the wetlands intact? We're looking at tools where you connect up to the trail system. Do neighborhoods change a little bit from what traditionally has been seen in Macomb Township to more of an environmental neighborhood where you do have clusters where people have connections and give a different type of housing type that may attract a different type of population? So we got all those in mind right now. We're looking at mixed use development. Can we transfer density to certain parts of a property while doing conservation easements or any other type of natural easement type things where it's in perpetuity, it stays green. So there's all kinds of models out there we're looking at.
And then just to follow up on that, and I know we talked about this early on, but we haven't discussed this portion of the master plan for a while. The long-term liability of interior subdivision roads, which we've seen the numbers, and they're, well, frankly, quite staggering, the amount of repair that needs to be done on the interior subdivision roads. Have we looked at that at all? Is that something that you think we have effect on, or is that kind of a dead end?
We'll get into the goals and policies. We get into that a little bit, at least in terms of goals and policies and how you want to proceed in terms of maintenance of roads and things like that in subdivisions. We don't really have. It's one of those things you want to set in place when people come in front of you, site plan approval. At least you have a chance to talk about that and get that on the table. In the end of the day, though, it becomes the county road commission issue. So what we can affect from their policy end, we're trying to align with it, but who knows if that changes. So, but we can do what we can do at the site plan state.
Very good, and as I think everyone can attest, and as we have some members of the public here, I don't know that there's a problem I hear more about than traffic right now. And it's been the case for about as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
So
I think this is normal for the high-growth community. It goes that fast, trying to get the county to keep up with the roads. Not just in this area, all over Michigan, all over the country, they run into these issues with these, high growth. And the county trying to get funding together in order to pay for some of these.
get the roads when you have the population come in. No, understood. Just want to make sure it's on your radar.
It's on the radar.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. No one else? Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oliver,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, folks. Thank you very much.